We are Joe Penna, director of Arctic with Mads Mikkelsen and now Horizons Film Festival.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
I was at the midnight screening in Cannes.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
In the Lumiere.
Yeah.
That was the atmosphere was incredible, buzzing.
Yeah.
It was, I think, a great screening. And then I was also there last night.
Oh, wonderful. Which one did you like better?
Well, the second time I was looking for all the little things, you know, the interesting details. So
You must be one of the first people who's watched it twice.
yeah, because have you been doing the festival rounds? Tell me where the film has been, where you have been.
The places that I've been personally.
Yeah.
Cannes, and I went to a small film festival in Slovakia called the Art Film Festival.
Okay.
And this is my third film festival. It's also been in New Zealand and Australia, and I think BFI London. It's gonna go there.
Okay.
Was meant to go to Carlo Viveri. We ended up not going there. And a lot of places that we'll end up going. We have until next year to release it. So plenty of time.
I have to say it's striking because especially rewatching it, you sort of with survival movies you look for the hook, the premise, or the metaphor, and what really coalesced with me with the second viewing is that there's none of that. Like usually, the survival stands for something else, and it's sort of reflected in the character.
Yeah.
This is not because I know you talked at length about the lack of a background for the character, which is a very interesting detail too.
Yeah.
It's not just that. It's not about knowing what's behind the character.
Yeah.
It's that his journey is essential, and it's survival stands only for survival. There's no metaphor. Was that?
You might be the first person I picked up on this. Yeah.
No, I mean it's because it's fairly obvious on the surface, but then you sort of, when you think about it and you think of all the other films that you've seen, they're sort of similar.
Yeah.
And you think there's something different here.
Yeah.
And
this is about capitalism. This is about,
Yeah, or even just, sometimes, because, for example, All Is Lost, or one of a favorite of mine personally is The Grey.
I like The Grey.
It's like there's a lot of metaphors going on there.
Sure.
And
dealing with, a man who's about to kill himself, and then the metaphors of like him surviving the marriage, and what happened there. Not to spoil anything about The Grey for anybody who might have not seen it.
But
his daughter being taken in The Grey, that was... Oh, wait, that's a different film.
No. But, so what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you were conscious when you were writing, or you just wanted to tell the basic story and then that's where it stayed?
Yeah, the hidden message for me, I think every film has that, comes from somewhere else. The survival itself is just survival. I had seen... He is a rubric of a man, He is a silhouette. And you get to draw he's an outline, and you get to draw your own version of it. You get to put your own little heart on him. You get to put your own face on what he is. There is no wedding ring. There's no picture. So it felt forced to have the journey mean something else for him. Either for him as a character, maybe he had killed and eaten people. It's a little too close for Mads, maybe.
Do you really see that as possible interpretation?
Not really. No,
with the kindness with which he positions the rocks.
Right. I don't think that's the case. Maybe that could have been something that redemption is often somebody has done something very wrong, and is doing something and going above and beyond because they feel bad about it, and that works really well. But why? Why is it necessary? I didn't find it necessary. As I was watching all of these films, All Is Lost, The Grey, The Shallows, Wall-E. You know, like all of these films that have very, that are very minimalistic in this way, about the survival, and and then you start getting about the more Hollywood versions of those, like the Tom Hanks movie,
Castaway.
Castaway. You start thinking about that, and you start thinking about how his time on the island is actually quite short in the film. Mm-hmm. The first act is huge, where he's, you're learning about him working for FedEx and etc. And then the third act, second and third act are also when he's off the island and what he has to do. Yeah. That's even in the trailer. Yeah. Yeah. To me, it was a story. If we're doing Castaway, let's start with him with the big beard, and let's end with him getting off the island.
Yes, that's also the other thing, the fact that the film starts midway through, basically, or even at the end, because the first few sequences are the truth of this situation is already established. The character has made its peace with it, is resourceful, so he's found ways to cope with it. Yeah. And then a helicopter arrives, and that's sort of the third act of other movies.
Sure.
But here is the first, and I think what that does, interestingly, is that it takes away another traditional staple of the genre, which is the fact that you have to come to terms with the situation, and the knowledge that you develop, the expertise. Yeah. Normally you need to earn that through difficulty and hardship.
Learning how to fish and catching a little fish and not being able to eat for weeks,
And I find that as usually it's used for as a sort of it's an arc, and it's triumphant at the end because you've seen it all. But here the striking thing is that there's none of that, and it's always taken for granted that this man knows how to survive, and he's not dealing with that part of the whole thing. Like he just does it. Yeah. So, would you say is that something that attracted you to the story, to just in terms of the character, because your background, you're all about doing things and the actual practical aspect of that.
Yeah, sure. It was imperative for me that was the case. I find that in these survival films especially, sometimes it's a little too quick for them to learn how to fish, for them to learn how to do whatever, and there is such a rich history of these survival films doing this that I figured, let's have the audience, let's give them a little bit more credit than some of these films might, or some other films like this might have done. You figure it out. Listen, he figured out how to fish, right? He figured out how to tally the marks or whatever maybe. He's got it, right? We got it. We're on the same page. Moving on. What's important? That's all that's important for me, is to establish his routine, and that his routine could go on forever. Pull the bears aside.
With the beeping of the watch.
Beeping of the watch. It's autonomic. It's robotic. Yeah. Is there even a human being there left? If without other human beings, it's who is he? Who are we without other human beings? But then when she gets there, then that's when the difficult decisions need to get made.
It's funny you should say that, because in my second viewing, I was watching the early scenes in particular, which are very deliberate, and the pacing is fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's all done through this beeping of the watch, which sort of marks his different activities. And at some point I started to wonder, what about the battery on that watch? Mm-hmm. When is it going to run out? Which at the same place in which you would usually wonder, like, how is he doing? How is his emotional state? When is his emotional state running out? And but for him, as you said, it's more of a robotic thing at that point.
We give him a solar power.
Yeah, okay, I thought that's why.
Yeah. Solar power automatic, with the movement of your fingers.
Right. Yeah. And tell me about one other thing that I had sort of picked up on my first viewing, but really was evident last night, the beauty of the written things in this film, like, because he writes a lot in the film, and he leaves this signs for other people maybe to come and guide them through where he's going.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think I've seen recently a film that does so much with a map. Like all the central, because at some point he goes on a journey to save this other person.
Right.
So he has to move from his
cozy home.
Yeah.
To Mordor.
And there's another person with him, but she's not responsive.
Yeah.
So you don't have that usual back and forth with another human being. So much of that work is done through looking at this map.
Yeah.
And I think it's such an important part. It's clearly defined. You see, he's drawing itineraries.
We went through so many versions of that map.
Okay.
With production design, because it needed to be so clear.
Yeah.
Because without that map being so clear, he would have had to be speaking. Oh, this is going to take 6 days. Oh no, it's too far. No, it's this and that. You know, like in some things we needed to add where he's saying it's too far. Or play it a little bit more than what I would not have liked, but what I would have imagined somebody did in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to do as many things as true to life as possible. So if there's 15 minutes of Mads eating a fish, then goddamn, we're going to put 15 minutes of Mads. Cut it down a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the map it's everything that he knows. The earlier map before he knows exactly where he is, the one that's handmade, that's carved into a piece of the plane. The canvas from the plane, from the wings. If you look very closely, it's the same color as the wings. That's imperative for him, because to him it's so important. He carries it everywhere. He carries it in his person. It's one of the two things that he carries on his person. And it was important that be really clear and to really be able to understand that map.
Yeah. And also, there's another scene in which he very carefully tries to write the name of the person who's with him, but it's in an alphabet that he cannot do. So it's painstakingly, like he would not necessarily think that this is the most urgent thing he needs to do. But there's a beautiful scene in which he tries to recreate from the document that she has.
She has like a little identity card.
Yeah, identity card.
You know what's funny? He's trying to write her name, and it's all Thai characters, and he writes his name, and then he writes, you're right, he takes so long to write her name down, and doing every single little curve of every character, and this is a survival situation, and he's taking all of this time to do this, so clearly he cares about her. You know what he's writing in that scene? He's writing the word identity card. He didn't get her name right. So he doesn't even know her name, doesn't even know that he doesn't know her name.
Oh, that's fantastic. And obviously you have an actor who can do a lot.
We got lucky.
Yeah. And I know that it wasn't necessarily, you were without an actor for a long time, so you were looking for different people. It was not a case where you knew that you wanted him and went after him. It just sort of happened at some point.
Yeah.
But it's funny because obviously his face, there are, I think you can trace it. I saw there are 2 or 3 moments when everything changes on his face when he sees the helicopter going down. Yeah. And it's beautiful because he has that sort of disbelief, shock, and then a pause, and then it goes there. Yeah. It sort of reboots his
So glad you're mentioning that shot. I had to fight so hard to keep that shot.
Why?
Because some people involved in the production wanted go, like crash, go. I'm like, no. Stay. We need to stay. He needs to put his head down. He needs to, he just watched it's almost like a car crash, you know? I wanted the entire film to be from his perspective. So we never cut to the helicopter. We never cut to them going, oh no, we're going to crash. You know, we never do that. We see the helicopter crash happen about this big on the screen, you know? And to me, that was, like, even if I had all of the money in the world, it made it cheaper for us, which is good, you know? Even if I had all of the money in the world, I still would have shot it the same way because it's sad, you know? It's just like, there's no fireball. There can't be, you know, there's a survivor. There's no fireball. There's no, like, sound, you know? It's just, that's it. And it's shocking. Right. And that's why I think he can't move for a second. He's like, did that just really freaking happen, you know?
Right.
Okay, well, they need my help.
Yeah, it's also the disbelief of someone who thought it was at the end of his movie. Yeah. So it's like when you watch a film and you think you're being gracefully being brought to the end, and then there's like a coda. And you're like,
he thought that it was, you know, the big strings that are playing, and he's crying, and then, you know, people in orange are going to run out and grab him. And no, that's not the case. That's just the beginning, man.
And you've mentioned in the past that, of course, how much you took away from the script in terms of lines that were superfluous. But I was curious because you have a writing partner, writing.
Yeah.
How is that partnership? Because it's a regular collaborator for you.
Yeah. I'm the one who does the good things. He does the things you didn't like about the film. No, he's great because I'm the kind of person who is very pragmatic about things. You know, if it were a lifeboat scenario and we have 3 people on this lifeboat and a 4th person swims up, but there's not enough food for everybody, I'd just be like, no. He's like, he's got the heart, you know?
Okay,
so that conflict plays out in Mads' face many times throughout the film.
Okay. But do you write together, or you do passes and then one checks the others?
It's different every time. You know, usually we're in the same room together, really going through every single idea in outline form. And then I take a pass at it, the initial pass at it, and then he takes his pass at it, and then it comes back to me, and I change it back to my original pass, and and then he changes it back to his thing, and it's like, okay, well, we're fighting about these elements, you know, why? You know, why do you want this versus that?
Right.
And we are ruthless with each other, you know.
Right.
I think it's important that we're like, I just like that better. That's not good enough. Okay. You know, he says that to me, I say that to him. We have a bunch of phrases that we've come up with. There was one time where we used the word purple on the script, and I was like, I don't like purple. He's like, why don't you like purple? I was like, I just don't like the word purple. I was like, that's not good enough. What is it? Do you want lilac, or do you not want a color? Like, we need to go deeper, and we delve deeper, and sometimes we talk about punctuation on the script, you know? That's like how nitty-gritty we can get.
And how long did that take?
So it was quick. With this one, the initial pass was about 2 weeks. You know, we started talking. I brought him a picture that I saw of a half terraformed Mars. There were plants and there were trees, and I said, "This is really exciting to me. Imagine this world. You know, what kind of story can we tell in this world where, you know, but it was broken and it looked desolate." So we started talking about a city, or, you know, some people who were away from a very expensive Mars colony or something, you know, like an Elysium kind of thing, you know.
Sure.
But we both landed on survival, like one survival story. One guy with a Martian plane, you know, who has crashed far, far away from civilization.
Right.
Sent that to our agents, and they said, "Wow, really terrific script. You guys should really watch this trailer for Ridley Scott's new film, though, like The Martian that's coming up soon."
Like, it's funny because on some level I cannot believe this thing actually happening.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it must be a shock. Your entire thing.
I looked at the trailer and I was like, it can't be that. Oh my God, it's the same thing.
It's exactly what you think.
It's exactly the same thing. All right, we got to move it. You know?
All right, but I know that now you've not given up on the Mars idea.
yet.
So it's coming. Are you working?
Well, we wrote a little trilogy,
Yeah.
right? A thematic trilogy. The first one was a little trilogy.
Okay. Is that the
On
next?
Mars turned out to be Arctic.
Is that the next thing you're
Hope so.
doing?
Yeah, we're casting now. If we find our actress,
Oh, it's an actress. Okay.
then off we go.
Okay.
We need a Madza now.
Okay. Yeah. 'Cause I noticed last night you gracefully sidestepped a question about the testosterone of the film.
Yeah,
Which
you know,
I don't think it's a particularly masculine or a film that deals with masculinity precisely because this character is so elemental.
yeah.
It's just really a human being. There's nothing
It's
about
humanity. It's humanity.
But
It's less about man
yeah.
versus woman.
Yeah.
It could have worked with Charlize Theron. It could have worked with, an equally strong protagonist,
Right.
who is of any gender. But who cares? It's about a person doing this. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.